We are approaching a global recession, and some may argue that we are already in a recession in the United States. And how does this pertain to musicians and classical musicians in particular? In today's video, I'm going to dissect what a recession is, what you can do to prepare, and some of the things that I recommend you do to help stay afloat during this turbulent time. Let's talk about what a recession is. A recession is simply a reduction in GDP, which is a growing domestic product in the country, for 2 consecutive quarters. And in the US, you can argue that people are already predicting that there will be a recession coming within the next few months. This was bound to happen due to supply chain issues and the cost of materials going up. So here's what I recommend that you do that has helped me in turbulent times. And this is gonna help you in all times, not just in a recession, but in good times and in bad. So let's dive right in. Because this time can be overwhelming, I want to encourage you to be a part of a community or talk to some friends or some buddies that you can really, have these kinds of conversations with, because it's really difficult for you to do life alone. And especially if you're a musician, which is sometimes a very isolating job as it is, that you're in a practice room for many hours per day, you're isolated, you're not around people. And then when you get to rehearsal, it's business as usual, and you don't get a time to really interact and be social, especially as a professional musician. So what I encourage you to do is to just have a few friends in your corner, so that way you can build that community. And I strive to have a really good community on this YouTube channel. So I encourage you to subscribe, hit the bell notification, so that way you get notified for when these videos comes out, and for us to be a part of the conversation and part of the dialogue, so that way we can come up with solutions together. So I encourage you to hit that subscribe button. That's part of the reason why I started this YouTube channel, is to have that community for people, for beginners, intermediate, advanced, and professional players can come to this channel and have conversations, have a healthy dialogue about different products, violin tips, and tutorials. So it's a big, really nice community that we've developed within the last 2 years. Now let's talk about more of the financial side of things, now that you have a good community surrounding you and you have that support system. Let's talk about income diversification. So there are many ways for you to diversify your income as a musician. And we'll get to those in a moment, but I just want to share with you a quick story as to how I thought of my music career up until this point. Back in my bachelor's, I was preparing to become an orchestral musician. So what I was doing was preparing orchestra excerpts and Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto for all these auditions. And when I took a major symphony audition, I realized that it wasn't for me, and it wasn't so much the orchestra life wasn't appealing to me, but during that time there were a lot of orchestras going on strike. Like there was Chicago Symphony, there was Atlanta Symphony back in that day, like 2014, 2015. So I realized back then that even if I had an orchestra job, it did not provide stability for me. So it was important for me to have that lesson of not getting the job at the symphony, so that I can really think entrepreneurial and I can diversify different income streams. Let's talk about some of those different income streams that you can have. So what I encourage you to do, if you're not doing many of these already, is to teach. You can play wedding gigs. You can start a YouTube channel and build your community. You could also have workshops, work in a public school. Schools are dying for good teachers. And if there's a music program that is in need of a teacher, like a part-time strings teacher, they will want to hire you. And also, we're in a very good job market because of a labor shortage. You could also negotiate your salary based on the market price of that particular job. So this is a great time to have a job, and because people are in need of people to work. Like companies are just begging musicians to have jobs and to perform in these orchestras and play in these string ensembles. Like the other day, I was playing a gig that a symphony orchestra literally begged my cello friend to play this concert because they couldn't look for people. But at the same time, you want to make sure that there's a fair compensation due to the market and everything. So there's also that. More traditional ways, you can sell your music, you can sell sheet music. You could also apply for grants. That's kind of like another area that, I can't really help you with because I'm not a grant writer. But many nonprofit organizations seek grants for funding for their fiscal year. So if there are grants out there that you are eligible for, like solo grants, and you don't need to be a 501c3 nonprofit, and you don't have to, apply for like nonprofit status through your state, then yeah, definitely go for those grants. And also you can organize concerts in your community and you can charge a ticket fee, or you can do a free will offering in case times are tough and you want to provide a service for the community, and people will offer whatever they have and help you out financially. Because here's the thing, folks, like having one income stream is not a wise decision when you are a classical musician, because the stability for a full-time orchestra job is just an illusion. And I want you to be in control of your life. I want you to be in control of your music career. And having all these diversified incomes really help you out in the long term, because you're never bored with one thing. You have variety. You're not like playing the same Beethoven symphony, which, by the way, I love Beethoven and I love all those, the classical, female and male composers. But at the same time, you have to figure out what is realistic for you in this given time. So don't just do an orchestra position. Don't just teach. Don't just, do one thing at a time, because that'll hurt you in the long run. My last piece of advice for you, for a musician who's about to, enter the classical music season, or for anyone who is trying to prepare for a recession, is to keep your dollar spending to a minimum. This is a very important thing, because we're in a profession where sometimes it's very difficult to afford the tools of our trade. Our instrument is expensive, our strings are expensive, like the maintenance, the bow hair, it all kind of adds up. So there may be a period where you want to, be financially frugal in your decision making when it comes to buying strings. It may not be buying $100 set strings anymore. It may not be getting the highly recommended bow rehair person to rehair your bow. And you might have to cut down on costs and maybe try to find a better deal or a cheaper price somewhere else that kind of does the job for a limited time. But those are some ways that you can really help yourself out, is to reduce the spending. Because in New England, an average bow hair costs $85. And then the dominant strings, like a full set of dominant strings I checked, at my local string shop, now costs over $70 with tax for a full set of strings. I remember when I was in college, like 7 years ago, those dominant strings, the same set, costed like more around $50. And that just gives you perspective on the increase in prices of all the things that we need as string players. And if you're a woodwind player, or if you are a brass player, you have probably other essentials that may be going up in cost, because the cost of labor and the cost of materials are going up. So naturally, the companies need to really, jack up their prices so that way they can at least earn a profit and actually pay their employees. Another thing you might want to consider is being picky with the kinds of gigs that you choose, because it may not be cost effective down the line. Let's say if you have a monthly budget and you're trying to figure out, how much room you have in your budget, and if you accept this gig, it may kind of throw some smaller margins into other areas of your budget, like gas and whatnot. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you get accepted for a 5-service gig, which is pretty normal for a local part-time orchestra, for $450. And then there are 5 services plus a dress rehearsal. Usually dress rehearsals are not considered a service, but you have 5 services, that's including the performance, for $450. But for many of us freelance musicians, we have to drive to the gig, and this gig is 40 miles away. And that's one way. And then you have to put into consideration the cost of gas nowadays. Gas prices are up. So if we, be conservative now, the average is like $4.50. It's probably a little higher, maybe a little lower, maybe as of this video, but in my area, it's $4.50 per gallon. So for the 5 services that you're doing for $450, if you break it down, just by the hours of actually you playing in rehearsals and the concert, is $36 an hour. So $450 for 5 services, that's $90 per service. And usually an orchestra rehearsal lasts about 2.5 hours. So you have, 90 divided by 2.5, that's about $36 an hour. So let's say, for instance, that you get paid $450 for the gig, and then you have to put into consideration the cost of gas that you're going to be filling up your tank. And around like a 10-gallon car, if it's a compact car, you might fill it up for $50, for a real life scenario, because you'll be probably, having stop and start traffic, and, it's never a perfect scenario. And not to mention, because it's a 1099 job, you're gonna have to take taxes out for quarterly taxes or for the end of the year. So let's say for, round numbers, you'd have $450 minus 30%. That's $135 that you have to take out of your paycheck. And then minus the $50 that you take from that amount already, you're looking at, $265 that you're actually taking back into your pocket. And then you're spending all this time that you can, utilize your time and your effort and your energy somewhere else. So, the point of all of this is for you to be very efficient with your time and to be smart with your work. Because, even though someone is kind of waving a number at you, doesn't mean that it's, the most financially, responsible thing to do. Because if it's a $450 gig and I have to go to like another state 5 times to do that, or 40 miles away, wherever region you live in, it really doesn't make sense down the line. All in all, if you're preparing for a recession, you want to be smart with how you utilize your time. You want to reduce expenses. You want to have this community around you so that you can have the support and diversify your income. Those are the 3 tips that I want to give you for today when you're preparing for an upcoming recession. That way, there's a lot of less outgo than there is income. So I hope this video was valuable. I love talking about this stuff because I want to help you become a more financially secure violinist. If you're a professional or an advanced player, and you're really unsure of this time, everything's okay. Just make sure you have a plan. That's all it is. And if you have some ideas on different diversifications of income, leave your comments down below. I want to get this conversation going. And if you haven't done so already, if you're new to the channel, again, my name is Eric and I'm a violinist. I do a lot of content creation on this channel. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification, so that way you get notified for when new videos come out. It helps me out as a content creator to provide more videos for you. And also be sure to check out some other videos that I have on the channel, some violin news, some violin, tutorials. They're going to be right over here. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.